this is kind of neat. It's a crepe shop. How long have you guys been open? And we look at our clock and it's like, oh, 18 minutes. But then that night, it was all of our college friends that had kind of like trickled out into the community there. And it was a shit show. It was chaos. We broke like 4 or 5 different things and it was a line out the door. It was like a party in there. We ran out of water glasses. We broke our whole water station. People were getting on tables. I remember Don't Stop Believing came on and we were playing as loud as we could, but the whole restaurant was just screaming the full song. It was super cool. And I was just looking around like, wow, look at what we've done. This is neat.
Leo here, your host of the Building Bellingham podcast, and thanks for stopping by the studio. Pour a glass of whiskey or local beer, take a sip, kick those feet up. We're going to dive into what it means to be a business owner, what it means to be a member of this Bellingham and Whatcom County community, and what it means to find peace and balance while running a badass, high-octane, local, iconic business. Let's jump in. Bayly, thank you for joining us. And you and I have known each other for quite a while, first through school and then gotten to know each other through real estate. And then also now through, watching your businesses grow. You're an entrepreneur through and through. And I know that word is thrown around so lightly. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. It sounds exciting. What is an entrepreneur?
I think it could be many things. And I'm usually pretty hesitant to call myself an entrepreneur. I mean, I've only done a few things. But I would say layman's terms, an entrepreneur would be a hustler, someone who is willing to do whatever it takes to get whatever is needed done. On the restaurant side of things, which is my industry, willing to do the dishes, scrub the toilets, clean the floor, but also do the paperwork and the taxes and bill people that is needed or payroll and literally everything from being the janitor to being the owner.
The glue in all areas.
Yeah, absolutely. But I see an entrepreneur seeing opportunity where others don't. They take chances that others aren't willing to. And to a degree, I think, I've certainly taken chances, but I really admire a lot of other people that I see taking chances. And I suppose I use that as inspiration for what I am doing, but also what I want to do. So I'm very honored if people refer to me as an entrepreneur, and I think plenty have, but I'm always, I guess, striving to be more of one.
We can call it wantrepreneur. That's the word.
Wantrepreneur.
That's the word that I've consistently called myself.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, you're an entrepreneur. Yeah, wantrepreneur.
Yeah.
You and I crossed paths at Western, and this is maybe the idea was rolling about AB Crepes.
I think we were working on it when you and I first met, because it was in the comm department. Were we in the same class? I know we shared a class or two.
It was a class, yeah. I think it was that environment. It could have been the environmental or the advanced public speaking. It was one of those two. Yeah. And I was honestly the most engaged in any class in that department. But
certainly,
yeah, you and I started chatting, and I'm sure we bumped into each other at like a party in college, and then all of a sudden I said, how are you doing, man? I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but then you said, oh yeah, we're opening up a restaurant.
Yeah.
I was like, what does that mean? I had no idea.
We made an effort not to tell anybody about it. We had been watching a lot of inspirational YouTube videos. And one of the big things that we learned at the time, maybe not learned, was that if you told everybody your goals, then you would get the same chemical reaction as if you actually achieved your goals. So we didn't tell anybody until we signed the lease. And then we told everyone. So once the lease was signed, it became a reality and a terrifying one, and tried to get the word out there as quickly as possible. And I think at that point, I had no idea what I was getting into. And so there was this really like naive positivity, this optimism surrounding it.
So that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it was great. Knowing what I know now, if I were to go through the same process and endure what we endured for as many years as we did, I don't know if I would do that again. It was exhausting. But I mean, I was 21 when AB Crepes first opened. And I think I needed that youthful exuberance, that energy to make things happen and do what needed to be done.
You had probably signed a residential lease. So like you had gone through the process of
triple net.
No, when you were looking to rent a house. Yes, so this is like your experience with a lease, right? And then you go, okay, well, we need a space for the business. And did you know what triple net was?
No way. No, AB Crepes is, it's a wonderful combination of ambition, determination, but also just like luck and circumstance. I've always described it as all of our ducks got in a row. And when it comes specifically to the lease and that kind of thing, our building's owned by a private landlord, Joe Guthrie, and she's fantastic. Not very corporate. She didn't want lawyers to be involved, just us. And she also held the space for us for 10 months while we developed our concept and saved up some money. She pushed away other offers of people who were interested in the space because she wanted to give Alberto and I a chance. And in that 10-month period, we learned a whole lot. We kind of refined some of the details of what we were doing, but also learned in the lease. But she was a pretty hard person to negotiate with. She knew what she wanted. Her father started Frank's Place, which was in the same space, and it was a pawn shop. And so I don't know if you ever go to pawn shops, but they're masterful negotiators, and they're pretty firm.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get a lot of wiggle room, but she was very friendly and gave us every opportunity. There was no way, if we were trying to lease from any of these other commercial companies, that they would have given us the time of day.
How did you find the space?
I mean, I don't know what other people did in college, but I liked to wander a lot. I think I just turned 21. And so we were out at the bars and just walking around downtown at night, probably like midnight, 1 o'clock. And we were coincidentally looking for a spot to live. And so being really interested in the bar scene and all that, my friend Alberto and I were joking about how fun it would be to live in that space. From there, I had gone on other road trips and gone up to Vancouver and experienced what a creperie was like and how it could interact with the community. And then the ducks getting in a row, it was just kind of like, quick. Yeah. It made sense in my head, like, oh my gosh, that place would make a perfect crepe shop. You move the kitchen all the way up in the front, you put in a service window there so you can interact and have this unique relationship with the customer. I think Bellingham would be really open to it, and it would bring this different element of energy and fun just to downtown, to the restaurant scene, and it being open late. Being someone who'd like to stay up late, go out, I saw...
That was a very tactful way of saying you like to go to the bars.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Me too. Hey.
Right. Yeah. But at the time, there was only a few options. I think it was like the taco truck that was right next to El Capitan's there on the railroad. And then there was Palomini's. I'm probably missing one. There was one other concept that I don't remember.
There was Pita Pit.
But Pita Pit.
But we're talking like...
Which was popular back then, Oh, I like to make the joke that we have the largest regular following of people who don't know that they're regulars.
That's so good. So you're analyzing this scene, and we're going to make a parallel once we get to Otherside. You don't know what you don't know going into it. You're learning so much in this first 10 months. Joe gives you this opportunity to, she wants to create a space for you because you're a local business and you're these two younger guys that have a vision, and she maybe thinks it can add value as a tenant, right? So you're analyzing competition, or did you just go, we don't even see the competition? We
actually analyzed Pita Pit. Yeah, that was our example because they had all of their finances and information online. And so we looked that up, and based off of their numbers, we did our low end projections based off of their bottom numbers on their high-low range, and kind of broke down the cost of food and goods and whatnot for our concept. And a lot of naivety going into that as well. But we thought, how could we fail? We could definitely make this work if we work most of the hours. And so decided to pull the trigger on that. But Berto, he hadn't even tried a crepe when I brought up the idea of like, hey, we should open up a creperie, because he had the restaurant experience and I just had the idea.
What was his background in restaurant?
His family, so he grew up in the Longview, Kelso area down in Southwest Washington. His background was restaurants. His dad owned a few, and he grew up working in them, and in a very casual sense. It was a family operation. And I didn't know that until we opened, because he was a very casual person and didn't have like the refined skills that I would say AB Crepes is now. It took a lot of time to get to that point. But that's kind of like live and you learn and you grow as time goes on.
Right. Yeah. Right. Kind of wild that you can just businesses, especially corporate businesses, just offer their financials, right?
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Yeah. So how did you know that? How did you find that out?
Berto was in the accounting program up at Western. And so he kind of already knew that. And then just did a little bit of digging.
Like side note for people that are analyzing if they want to come into a market.
Yeah.
There's a lot of public information.
There's a lot of public information.
Yeah.
So the internet's a pretty resourceful place, it turns out.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah. I've been just sending letters to people and hoping they come back. Yeah.
Waiting back.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're in college, so you have a ton of money just lying around, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you didn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, so you had no money?
I would say for a college kid, I was doing pretty well.
Yeah.
My first real job where working for someone else was commercial fishing in Alaska. And so I started that. I turned 16, and I think like the next week I went up to Kodiak, and I did that through high school. I did that through college, and I put money away every single year. And I was able to live off of that. And just fortunately, my last season before the crepe shop opened was my best season. And so I was able to put away quite a bit of money just in that whole time frame. But then also we were able to take out small loans.
Leverage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Was the space already built out? Was it like, did it fit perfectly?
It used to be a pawn shop. And then I think for 6 months, it was a little retail clothes shop.
Yep.
So it basically had nothing. And it was hurdle after that 10-month window. We were essentially just getting all of our permits in a row, kind of loading our cannonball, just ready to fire. So once we signed the lease, we'd be able to just start work the next day, do all of our demo and build everything out. And we had quotes on everything as well. It was just finding every single loophole that we possibly could. And I don't remember his last name, but there was a plans examiner, someone working with the city who, his name was Greg. So shout out to you, Greg, if you're listening. He has since retired, but just the most helpful individual. And I mean, he knew that we did not know shit. And so he walked us through what to do, what not to do, their own recommendations. And I mean, really just kind of pushed us along. And then, I mean, we weren't able to afford what we probably should have done with plumbing. And so Art Favinger was a huge resource as well. He helped us be creative and kind of avoiding having to cut through the concrete the whole way. And we have this pump, essentially, a sump pump that pumps all of our water up, and that's our main drainer.
Yeah. Okay. So you had a lot of help from, huge shout out to Greg.
Yeah.
Who was at the city. But then you got financing. Did you end up getting an SBA loan, or was it a private loan? How'd you secure financing?
We each took out private loans.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah. So individually, and then kind of comprised that together. But also, I look at pictures back when we first opened. It was as bare bones as it could get. In the food industry, if you buy a product from people, you can kind of leverage that to get certain types of equipment. And so we got our coffee brewing system, we got Airpods, and we got a grinder, all because we were buying the coffee grounds. And we tried to do that as much as possible just to save money everywhere. And I mean, a crate maker was $250 at a time. And so we had 4 of those, and I mean, it was a pretty inexpensive concept, but also the space looked like it was an inexpensive concept. Our very first review, fortunately, was a glowing review, but it did say the space looked like it was a college boys' dorm room, which makes sense because Berto and I designed it.
College, yeah.
Yeah, and Berto, he's a wonderful human in some ways, but man, his taste is questionable.
He's college bro.
Like, we're gonna make a drawing on this wall, and we're gonna put a little mural over here. And
so your business partners as friends, right?
We started out that way.
Yeah. So and obviously things have progressed, and you're now the sole owner of AB Crepes, correct?
Yeah.
A lot of people go into business as just business partners, and they don't have any pre-existing relationships.
Some people get that.
Yeah, you understand that.
Yeah.
Tell me about why you get that.
It's essentially a marriage, kind of. But we were best friends going into that concept, and our priority number one was to remain best friends. And we did a pretty decent job of doing that, but work became bigger than us at some point, where it was a lot more challenging to maintain the friendship and the work. Berto and I were more intertwined than he and his wife, or me and my partner, and it was making these big decisions that have a lot of, I guess, effect on what we do, either as a business or financially, personally. If we're able to buy a home, all of that, it was challenging, but we both had a yes mentality, and I think that's something that was really helpful in the beginning, where if he had an idea, we were willing to give it a shot. And if it worked out, great. If it didn't, great. At least now we know that it doesn't work. And I mean, I think that willingness was part of what helped drive us, because I mean, with our staff would have ideas, and so we'd give that a shot. We'd give literally anything a try. And then once we figured out that it didn't work, then we would say, okay, we're confident, we can move on from that.
So, okay, first review, all reviews are important. And like I would say, they're important to any business, small or large. And obviously large businesses get significantly more probably reviews, but you guys have a ton of reviews.
Now we do, yeah.
Now you do.
I quit after 5 years. I really stopped focusing on the reviews, but we're over 1,000 on multiple platforms.
I think Tiffany quoted 1,300 on. Is it 1,300 on Google?
It's a lot.
Damn,
that's a lot. Yeah.
And Yelp is a really hard one to maintain but it's maybe easier in the restaurant industry because they're reviewing more just restaurants. Mm-hmm. But such an interesting world where your lifeblood, people go online and they're like, I'm looking for X, Y, or Z. What do other people say? Even if these other people suck, right?
Right.
What are these other people?
I read so many other restaurants reviews,
and some of them are hilarious because they're so dumb.
Some are,
and some are really bad, and some are really good. Tell me about the first review you got, your reaction.
The first negative review?
Both. Let's hear about a good one and a bad one.
I mean, the first review, that wasn't, I think, at the time it was the Cascadia Weekly. That was the big one that we were all paying attention to. And they really enjoyed the garlic chicken pesto. They said it was amazing, that our walls would be dirty and our floors would be worn. And what was neat is I remembered that line about the floors being worn. And I think like at the beginning of COVID, we closed the whole shop down except for the window. And so I changed the flooring, and our flooring was so worn, just patches here and there. And you could see where people had walked and stood. And so it just made me think of that review. And I was like, oh, damn, they were right. That was cool. The bad review, I don't even remember this person's name, but it
wasn't Greg.
It was not Greg.
Yeah.
No, but they hated us. And I don't know why. Her and her father came in and apparently had a horrible experience. But part of the review, most of the review was just inaccurate. They claimed that you were forced to give a tip, that we didn't have vegetarian options, even though like 4 of our items were vegetarian friendly. Plus, I mean, if you asked us, we would add or subtract whatever you want. We would literally do anything to make the food that you want. And then that our staff was rude, and it was on Yelp, so it's skinny, but it was a long review, 1 star. And then they went and made other profiles and copy pasted the same review to give us more 1-star reviews.
Wow.
It was frustrating. And I mean, I think people who aren't in the restaurant industry or don't own restaurants, they think that we can pay to hide certain reviews. You can't pay to hide anything on Yelp from the restaurant's side. It's very favoring of the consumer side. And so we brought it up to Yelp like, hey, technically people are only allowed to have 1 review. They even say, this is the same review I've already written, copy pasted it. They didn't remove it. Fortunately, it didn't have that big of an effect. Yeah.
Because, okay, so let's talk about, first, I want to hear about your reaction, because it sounds like you looked at it and were like, oh, obviously frustrated. Like it hurts because you're proud of something that you've created. It's rolling, you have people that love and enjoy your brand, your food, the people, everything. And then you have one person that's incorrect that comes in and says horrible things and posts it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
How do you as a person, outside of that go, is what it is?
I take the perspective that I don't take anything personally. Everybody has their own context. And sometimes if they walk in having a bad day, I mean, they're going to see something differently than they normally would. And maybe a certain interaction will just rub them the wrong way and they'll continue down that negative tangent. So, I mean, in regards to this review or even a lot of other reviews, I corrected them about the parts that like, hey, you don't have to tip us. You can just hit no tip. There's a button there that says no tip. Or, we offer these items for vegetarian options. And so I kind of try and correct where I can. I apologize for things that were within our control. And that's basically it. I hope they come back. If they don't, at the time I was terrified because, oh no, we lost a customer. We're going to go under. I was much more of the scattered one between Berto and I. Berto was just eternally optimistic, and I had never been in the restaurant industry. So I had no idea what that meant. Was terrifying. I've since mellowed out a whole lot. I embrace 1-star reviews. It's kind of a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. Or you just get the flagrant ones that are kind of silly.
Yeah.
So
it's this balance of how can we make this the most specific and authentic while also realizing that we can't serve everybody.
Yeah.
Or not everybody will like what we have or the brand or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you have enough of a following. You have enough growth, you have enough things that people like that it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I was really trying to satisfy everybody, make everyone happy, even the people who have their own crepe experiences from this one time in Paris 36 years ago, and we needed to emulate that experience. You can't do that. People have their opinions, and that's totally valid, but it took me a while to just embrace who we are, what we do, and have confidence in our concept.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about brand and marketing. So you're in the kitchen, you're hustling, you're hypersensitive to these reviews at this time. You have a business partner. At this point, is it just you two, or did you have any employees that that worked for you?
We had, I think, 8 staff starting out.
Yeah. So have you ever hired somebody before?
Not at that point, no.
So how did you pick people?
We had a couple friends, and then basically anyone who had made a positive impression on us, we just said, you're hired.
Yeah.
Most people had open availability at the time. I mean, we made a lot of mistakes. There were some people who were duds, but we were there all the time. I mean, Berto and I split the hours 50-50, where in the first year and a half, he opened every single day until the midpoint, and then I closed every single day. And then he would do classes in the evening. I would do classes in the morning. We were there so much that we could enforce anything that needed to be enforced. But I think that was also empowering, where we're not this old owner manager. We're 21, 22 years old, working with people who are 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So they saw us working our ass off. And so I think that motivated them to work their ass off. We definitely made a lot of mistakes. Probably were understaffed 95% of the time, but it was it was necessary. I mean, we came real close to going under a couple times the first 2 summers. Well, 3 times. We had a fire in December our first year, which was an eye opener, and that was my first experience working with a large insurance claim, and that was a whole curveball in and of itself. But it was kind of fortunate because it happened during dead week, and so we just said, "Fuck it, we're gonna not pay attention to this for a week, focus on finals." So we studied, did that, and then when the break actually happened, we went to like rebuilding the shop, and it took about a month to get it back. But get insurance if you ever. It's the smartest thing.
That's insane. First of all. Second of all, that's amazing that you were able to just roll with it, especially you being, of the two of you, not being the like just go with the like. Obviously you're chill, but like not being the like super go with the flow business partner. You're like, nope, I'm gonna block it out. It was probably in the back of your mind though.
Like, to a degree, but we both acknowledged that there was nothing that could be done about it. It already happened. Us stressing about it's not going to change it. And so we kind of just laughed, and it happened at like 3 a.m. So we got there like 4:30 or 5, and then made our calls, talked to whoever we needed to. And then by the time we were done with all that, Avenue Bread had just opened. So we went over there, had some coffee, and like, "Oh, how's your day going?" It's like, "Oh, good.
It's going great.
We just had a fire next door. You know, we're closed. We're going to be closed for a while." And we were just so calm and nonchalant, and just maybe like a little sociopathic. I don't know. But we were still probably processing everything.
It's a lot to take in. Yeah.
The cashier was like, "What the hell?"
There's this part of entrepreneurship. A lot of people see the surface. A lot of people see, they walk up, they order their crepe, they go, "Damn, that was good." And then you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" You're friendly. You're like, maybe you've worked the entire day. Maybe you've just picked up after classes and you're there the late night shift. My perception was like, that was a good experience. But you inside are like, I'm fucking exhausted. What does it look like below the surface? Are you just pedaling like crazy and then waving on like above the surface? What is it like?
I can only speak for myself because I think it's different for every single person. In an ideal world, everyone who is an entrepreneur is doing it because they intrinsically love the work. They love what they do. I had just a deeply rooted belief that it was a good idea and I needed to make it succeed. And I genuinely enjoyed it. It was new. It was challenging. I was learning a lot every single day. And so that just fueled me. I was also so terrified that kind of gave me a lot of energy as well.
Like what would happen if it didn't work? But you knew it was going to work, but what would happen if it didn't work?
We would work until like 3 or 4 a.m, and then I'd have class at 8 or 9. And so I'd just wake up and just keep going. And I had printed out 100%, like, and put it 15 different places wherever I interacted with life, on my visor in my car. And just so I'd see them like, okay, I got to keep giving 100%, because everybody says give 110, but that's like literally impossible. So just working as hard as you can at every single moment. That's just what at the time we really believed was necessary to succeed. But we didn't have wives, we didn't have kids, we didn't have dogs, we didn't have other things to take care of. It was just a selfish period in our life where we could devote all of our time and energy towards this one thing. We didn't really care about at the time about hanging out with friends. And so we just didn't have those worries or things to draw us away. So it wasn't the most challenging in that regard.
Probably the best time for it.
Yeah. But, in time, you do get tired and it's hard. And we were at our wits' end by the time that the fire happened, because we foolishly were going to school full time then and still working 80 or 90 hours a week. So we're pretty burnt out, and that was a learning lesson. So we went to part time after that and tried to get like 60 or 70 hours a week of work instead. Just
take it back a little bit, maybe like part time, 60, 70 hours. Yeah.
I mean, for Berto and I both, he working really long days at work and me commercial fishing. I mean, like, in those experiences, for me at least, it was you're working, but you're just living life. And at the time, life is work and work is life. And so you might as well enjoy it. Right. You have that choice. And so when I was at work, I just learned to become friends with the people I was working with and have a really fun time. And I'm still friends with a lot of those original group, and honestly, a lot of the staff that I've worked with over the years. And that's what made it so special, is the people I worked with. And over time, I've learned that that's like one of my big motivating factors is, how can I help the people I'm working with? I see my customers, my staff, or the people I work with, and then their customers are the actual customers. Mm-hmm. And that's where I get my reward now. It's not just as creating a business. I'm learning about people. I'm figuring out what they need to succeed, and everybody's different, so they all have different needs. And that part's tiring, but it's rewarding.
In your brain, I'm going to take it back a step. Sure. You're talking about like you had this just super clear vision that this was a good idea. There's a lot of people that probably were like, hell yeah, let's do this. Like I'm stoked for you. But then there's the other people, or maybe there's not that many people. There's a few people that are like, hell yeah, we support you, whatever you do whatever you need to do. And then there's the other people that were like, this is a stupid idea.
I would say all of our college friends were the ones who were very optimistic. yeah, it's so exciting. You're going to open a restaurant, because they also didn't know what it entailed.
Yeah.
They didn't know the risks associated with it. They didn't know what a triple net lease was. They didn't know the long list of downfalls that could happen. But I mean, we went to professors. My parents were supportive, but hesitant. Berto's parents were very supportive because that was their industry.
Yeah.
But we got a lot more negative feedback than we did positive.
What was some negative feedback?
We went and talked with one of the business professors, who I don't even remember their name. We told him our idea, and he said, "Oh, you're doing this with friends? You should not do this. I give you 6 months tops and you'll be under. This is not going to work. It's a terrible idea. You guys are going to end up resenting and hating each other." And thank God we heard that, because it's one of those like, fuck the haters. And it's fuel to the fire.
Fuel you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was real motivation. And I think we coined the term, we didn't coin it, but we heard someone say dream killers.
Yeah.
And so we would just throw them in that whole pool of people and just say, like, we're going to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm a fairly stubborn person. And so that was a lot of motivation for me. It's like, okay, I need to prove them wrong. We can do this. And, our first year anniversary came around, and a lot of our friends and family started to come forward and say, "I thought this was a terrible idea, but you made it a year. That's amazing." Yeah. And then, the third anniversary came around, and then the fifth, and now everyone seems to be
almost the 10th too.
We just had the 10th in April.
Oh my God. 10th was just, awesome.
Which are
10 years. Cheers to 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
On 420, which was a coincidence. That was not planned, but everyone comes in. We have the
I don't believe you.
happiest customers on that day.
Yeah.
Well, we were trying to do Friday the 13th then, but then we just weren't ready. So we pushed it back one more week, and it was Friday. So 420 was the day, and we didn't even do a grand opening. We just opened our doors and kind of just sat there. And some person walked in, and they're like, "Oh, wow, this is kind of neat. It's a crepe shop? How long have you guys been open?" And we look at our clock, and it's like, 18 minutes.
Yeah.
And they had no clue. We did a terrible job of marketing in that sense.
Yeah.
But then that night, it was all of our college friends that had kind of like trickled out into the community there. And it was a shit show. It was chaos. We broke like 4 or 5 different things, and it was a line out the door. It was like a party in there.
Did you run out of stuff?
We ran out of water glasses. We broke our whole water station. People were getting on tables. I remember Don't Stop Believing came on, and we were playing as loud as we could, but the whole restaurant was just screaming the full song. It was super cool. And I was just looking around like, wow, look at what we've done. This is neat. So the days for the next 6 months or a year were slow, painfully slow. And then the evenings were chaos. And then the nights definitely floated us. But it was just
very convenient that you worked the evenings, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was wild. For the 6-month anniversary, we had a line out the door all the way down to past Avenue Bread. And then for our 1 year, same thing. It was just chaos. It was very cool.
So you have a really excited, loyal following, like people that come to your shop.
Yeah, I was just talking about this, I think yesterday, actually, where people are coming in now saying like, "Oh yeah, me and my wife, we met here. We had our first date here."
Yeah.
And then they're coming in with like 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
These grown kids that are speaking to me like, "How's it going? I've been wanting to see this." Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Hey Bayly, what's triple net?
Yeah.
Like,
It's mind blowing, but it's kind of neat. Time flies by in that sense. It's been a long 10 years, but at the same time, it seems like just yesterday.
You just mentioned all these checkpoints, like 1, 3, 5, and now 10. At what point did it become like it felt like it was a little bit more stable or a lot more stable? At what point were you like, okay, this is working. I'm gonna go to Camino Island.
Nice segue.
Yeah, you like that?
That was natural.
God, it's so good.
I would say I felt comfortable taking my foot off the gas at the 5-year anniversary, because I mean, all the benchmarks were like, a certain percentage makes it past the from 1 year, and then X amount makes it past 3, and then
this was your college professor.
Probably, yeah. And then it's like
a
ridiculous percentage don't make it to 5 years. Yeah. And once we hit 5 years, I'm like, okay, it seems like Bellingham likes us. Maybe 1-star reviews don't mean as much. And so, I mean, before Camino Island happened, I just went traveling for a while.
Where'd you go?
I went to South America, I went to Europe a couple times, and just kind of tried to enjoy life, because I feel like I sacrificed 5 years of my life in order to establish something. And so I wanted to make up for that a little bit. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
So, but then I got a little bit more too addicted to that. And it was not until the Camino opportunity came up that I got back into the whole swing of things with work.
Okay, so you're like, okay, checkpoint 1, 5 years, down with the haters. I'm going to go travel for a bit and have life experience and just go out there and just enjoy myself. And then you had another idea. Was this also with Berto, or is this by yourself?
I wouldn't say that this was even our idea. We were approached by the people who owned a business complex down there, and they said that they liked the concept. They've been coming up for late night just to enjoy the atmosphere because it was busy and exuberant and youthful. And they told us about the space that they had, and if we wanted a free coffee, they'd love to show us around and talk about what they think. And Berto and I have a policy: if people offer a free cup of coffee or something, we're always going to say yes.
Yeah, that wasn't a free cup of coffee, though, was it?
It ended up not being a very, very, very expensive cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But we'll hear anybody out. I went down there and toured the spot, and this person just had, at the time, this very established business resume and silky smooth voice, in the sense of like, you're going to be successful if you do it like this. And this is our
they
concept.
were the opposite of your college professor. They had a silky smooth.
They lured us in.
Yeah.
They said, if you do this type of concept and incorporate your crepe concept into it, you are going to just thrive. You're going to have 100 stores in X amount of time. And
wow.
Oh wow, that'd be so cool to be that successful. And so we signed a lease, and in the same sense as Joe, our first landlord, this person was quite helpful, and they promised to like coach us and mentor us along the way. And they had, that resume that we're like, wow, they're going to be able to mentor us for years, and this is going to be great. And then we got to the point of opening. The concept was Hodgepodge. It was 3 different micro food concepts within one roof, and it was the creperie, it was a taco shop and burrito shop, and then it was also a fish and chips house. So kind of collectively 3 different food concepts that are all very different. But yeah, we opened, and the first month was great, but then after Labor Day on Camino Island, it died down quite a bit.
So like seasonal holiday.
Yeah, but then we're looking at the next 8 months, like, oh, if this is the freaking pace,
then
we're in some trouble. And it was painful.
Did you know much about Camino?
I knew nothing. This was my folly, I suppose, where I trusted everything that they were saying, but I didn't trust my own gut, because it felt weird going into it. But I was like, you know what, this person has a vision. I'm going to trust their vision, but I didn't quite see it as clearly as they did. And so time went by. We were there for 1.5 years, and then we decided to close the doors, mainly because it just didn't work out. I inherently didn't understand the community. I didn't know what their needs were. I didn't know their practices, their habits, not like I do Bellingham. And so learned that lesson quite harshly. And then we had to finish the duration of the lease, because we brought in other people to kind of sublet our space for the duration of our term. And then the landlord ended up turning them away because they were just difficult to work with, kind of a naysayer. They didn't like the people, which was also frustrating, because those were, I think, 4 separate people that were interested in our space, trying to alleviate that financial obligation of ours. Yeah, the burden.
I'm assuming that AB Crepes was basically floating.
Oh yeah, it was bankrolling it at that point.
Yeah.
So
it's in a good place, and you're happy, and you go travel.
Yeah.
You start this thing up, and it's kind of a blessing in disguise, though. You had a huge lesson, and you had this other previous success.
We're lucky it didn't put us under. Yeah, pretty amazing. So, but it was a big hit. It was a big hit on the ego too. I mean, at that point, we had experienced nothing but success, and I think that was the other potential real positive. It was kind of a reality check, like, oh, this is like the other side of what can happen when you take risks. So I've been a lot more calculated since then, and just kind of pondering ideas, poking things, and just seeing how far I can go. And then if there's like a hurdle I don't want to jump over, then I just call it there, or I'm going to revisit it later. And because there's a lot.
We're going to table that and revisit it later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's other concepts I have that, I mean, at the time they weren't very feasible. I think they will be eventually. It just depends on how Bellingham develops, what their needs are.
Obviously your gut early on was like, fuck it, we can do anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Then you have this. You had this like complete, like just absolute sideswipe to your ego.
Right.
Ego is important. It's confidence, right? On one side,
certainly,
and it's part of who you are, like what makes you unique. But then there's this like puffing of the ego, and this just it brought you to a place that allowed you to say, "Ooh, I should have followed my gut."
Yeah, I definitely should have followed it. That more or less was the essence of the lesson. I'm not going to listen to other people if they tell me they have a good idea. Other people have a good idea. That's great. You should do it. Ironically, arrogant in and of itself, or maybe a big ego. But if I have the idea and I believe in it, I have the vision for it, I can see it from beginning to end, then I'll pursue it, assuming all the ducks are in a row.
Right. You can use the phrase, I like that for your journey, right?
Yes.
That's great for you.
That is so great for you.
Yeah.
What Trackside's doing?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I would have loved to have done something like that. Essentially the micro food hall. So the Hodgepodge idea I think is amazing. And I think it would really work in Bellingham. But that whole container van village is freaking sweet.
Brilliant. I've seen that
Oh,
in
I love
Belize.
it.
I've seen
Yeah.
that in Austin. I've seen that
So many
like,
places.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a culture hub too. I mean, oh, that is so cool. Everything
Yeah.
that's happening down there. I really don't want it to be a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Something like that would be great. Or even then, you know, take the idea of Hodgepodge and kind of like make it a little bit larger. And you have 5 or 6 different micro food spots within that. You have a tap house and a full bar, and you have this essentially location that you can bring your whole family or your whole group of friends,
And
it
choose
services
like a food court. Like
it's like a food court, but
like
it's
craft
nice. Yeah, exactly. Craft food.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're going to be like, oh, you want Burger King or Wendy's? Or, yeah.
Craft food, crap food.
It's just not viable right now because I didn't have the capital because Hodgepodge was kind of a burden for a while.
Yeah.
But then coming out of that, and then COVID happened. And
So tell me about that time period. Is the Otherside Bagel baby even like thought about, or is it like, is this, you're like, oh shit, COVID hit. Tell me about this.
The Otherside Bagel baby had not even been conceived yet.
Yeah. How did AB do during COVID?
I would say okay, which for COVID means really
Good.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we pivoted hard.
Great word, by the way.
Yeah. So a lot of my family, they're in the medical industry, and you know, they were talking about this whole COVID thing and what is that back in like January.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, you need to prepare for this. I had talked about it. We had a little bit of a plan, and then it started to really blow up into something bigger. But we fortunately had that service window. So we just shut down the interior, operated solely out of the service window, which we also used it as an opportunity to just renovate the inside, which we didn't change a lot, but we did the flooring, we painted the interior, we updated some of the stuff in the bathrooms, you know, added certain equipment here and there, surface level things.
It's like on the business stuff versus like in the business.
Yes. Yeah. Working on it. Exactly. At the time we only had Viking Foods, but then we adopted Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, and that also helped quite a bit.
I do have a quick story. When I fell off my mountain bike 20 feet, went to the hospital, was there late into the night, did not break anything, but was pretty jacked up. I need to order food, and I got 2 or 3 crepes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I got like 2 savory, a sweet. I was a little drugged up, and I just ate myself to sleep, and it was great. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you for feeding me.
Yeah. Post injury, think of crepes.
Yeah. I mean, other times too. Yeah. Like at the bottom of the rock drop on SST up at Galbraith.
Yes. Or like in the hospital as you're entering the ER.
Yeah.
Crepes.
Yeah. Are you like?
This is your time.
Are you pretty jacked up right now?
Yeah.
You could probably use a crepe.
To be jacked up on food.
Yeah.
Crepes.
Yeah, like this. Okay, so COVID hits. You're doing okay, which is good.
Coincidentally, like there was just circumstance as well at the beginning of that. We had, by happenstance, we had 3 or 4 people leave like a month before COVID became a thing. And
employees.
Yes, employees. So we brought on 3 or 4 people, and they were still in the training phase. Then COVID blew up, and so we kind of just let those people go, kept our core staff that we had already had because our hours were reduced up quite a bit. We weren't doing late night stuff. We were just open until 10 during the like peak of COVID. And so that was helpful. We were able to mostly employ everybody for the duration of COVID, which was huge. And a lot of our staff too, they didn't even collect those weekly checks and all of that. It was just working.
Something to be proud of.
It was neat. Yeah.
Seriously, like that is something to be really proud of, to focus on when times are good, making sure that people are paid well, making sure there's reserves, making sure the business is really healthy. So knowing that at some point your professor's going to be right about something, right? The naysayers are going to be like, oh, I told you so. You're like, yeah, but this is like the cycle. This is part of this like ebb and flow. So yeah, kudos to you for that. That's a huge deal. Tell me about Otherside. You like bagels. That's where it started.
It did not start there.
Okay.
So my business partner with Otherside is Nate Gray, and he's the bona fide East Coaster in the group. He's from Philadelphia. And I mean, for years he had discussed just what East Coast bagel culture was like. Yeah. And you walk in, you get a bagel, you get a coffee, and you're out within like minutes.
Is it a bagel or a bagel? What do they call
them? I say
them?
Bagel because I would say I'm Northwest.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we would say it.
BAY.
Bagel. I don't think there's as much. I don't know if rules is the right word, but you know, there's not a strict way to say bagel as much as there is schmear.
Yeah, sure. Schmear.
Yeah. Can I get a bagel? Schmear.
Yeah. Or how to cook them.
Bagels?
Yeah.
A good bagel you don't toast.
I thought you boil them.
Oh, yeah.
Remember we had this conversation about
if a bagel isn't boiled, it's not a bagel.
What is it? A piece of bread?
That
so a purist is going to say that it's a piece of bread.
And then, but there's growing number of bagel shops are steaming and baking their bagels.
So it's acceptable.
I'm not here to shit on them. Everybody has their own way. They have their models, and that's great. We're doing the boil method because it's authentic. We wanted to try and be as pure as possible because I've learned this after the fact of opening too. There are a lot of opinions about bagels.
Yeah.
But there's also a growing demographic of people who have moved here from the East Coast, whether it's New York down to Florida, or there's just a lot of people coming in from everywhere where bagels are a staple.
And they have an opinion. And I think that one thing that can unify all bagel eaters is that they should have a hole in the middle.
Certainly.
Yeah. I think that maybe like could start there.
Some of ours every now and then have like a pretty tight hole.
Yeah.
So, but
all right, for all you out there listening, this is about bagels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so tell me about boiling bagels versus steaming bagels.
I mean, it's just a different process to get that water step in there, apparently.
But they taste. Would you say?
No, they produce a very different product.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. So,
and are you saying this on record or off record?
I think everybody who is a bagel enthusiast would agree.
Okay.
And people who just make bagels passively would probably agree as well, even though I think making bagels passively and steaming them is a lot more challenging. That it's really only easy on a commercial level.
And like passive bagel making is a subreddit, right? It's like a community.
I'm very active on that. You should check it out. Steaming it basically makes more of like a sandwich. It's not as chewy. It's a lot softer to bite through. And then boiling is crunchier on the outside. You get that sound when you tear it open. It's great for bagel and schmear, more traditional style food. We proof ours a little bit more and we boil it. So it's kind of, we're trying to achieve the magical little balance where it's still chewy, your classic bagel, but it's still great for sandwiches because that's kind of the base of our whole concept, where we want it to be sandwich focused. Yeah. We want to really hammer the breakfast sandwich scene. And
they are so good. By the way.
I just love sandwiches. Yeah. And so, we're trying to just achieve a top-notch sandwich.
Yeah. The space, North State Street, you're right under all of that new multifamily, which is probably part of your strategy because it's a lot of student housing up there, right?
Yeah. It's marketed as student housing. Yeah. So a majority of the people living up there are all students.
So you're looking for a space. You have this concept pre-perfecting the crunch and the chewiness, right? I mean, you probably looked for a little while, right? But you're more experienced than when you were looking for AB Crepes.
We were kind of putting out feelers. I mean, Nate and I had a few different ideas. And I mean, our whole regiment was we'd go play pickleball or go ride bikes and then have a beer or two and just talk shop, about a variety of concepts. And we had been kind of stewing and ruminating on this bagel concept for 6 months to a year. But then the stateside place, they reached out to the crepe shop and said, hey, you're in the restaurant industry. If you happen to have a concept or if you have the interest to move, we have a space that you might be interested in. We'd love to show it to you. So I said, Nate, let's go check out the space, because never turned down at least just learning about an opportunity. So we went and checked it out and spoke with the people managing the project and the space, and they seemed really friendly. They were willing to work with us. And so then we pitched the idea to them and they loved it. And again, very friendly in the whole process. And it kind of just, the same idea where the ducks were in a row, and there are always going to be hurdles, but there was never a hurdle that we approached that we weren't willing to figure out a way to jump over.
Because you believed in it.
Yeah. Well, and this was our concept. Yeah. And we knew Bellingham. We knew that section of downtown. We know our people. And we believed in it. We knew we could make it work, which granted, we're coming up on 3 months. So I wouldn't quite say we've made it work yet. We've opened, but when we hit 5 years. Yeah. But no, if we hit a year, I'll be a lot more confident.
Yeah.
So
how did you meet Nate, by the way?
He's one of those late night regulars at the crepe shop.
Late night means he would get done at Glow with the $5 mystery drinks. Yeah. And then he would come. Do you remember those?
No, I wasn't big at Glow. I was more of a Rumors guy.
Yeah.
So
it was like all good places.
He would come in and he was very friendly and we would chat. And then we went to April Brews Day. It was one of the first ones that they had. And we call April Brews Day our anniversary because I got detached from my group of friends and he got detached from his. And we ended up just hanging out the whole time. And we drank a whole bunch of beer. And then is it Cap Hansen's right across the street? Or nearby where they do the Peruvian bear fuckers.
Yeah, it's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, he had been trying to get a job, and then he bought me a Peruvian bear fucker. And after drinking it, I said, "You're hired," which was questionable hiring practices again.
But a good hire.
Turned out to be a good hire, but a better friend.
Quick side note for those of our audience, most people in Bellingham probably know what a Peruvian bear fucker is. You go into Cap Hansen's, it's right next to where the Golden Foot Massage used to be. And if you don't know where that is, that's okay. That's okay. The whole point is, what is a Peruvian bear fucker? What's the experience like?
Eye-opening. You make friends when you drink it. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, through pain.
Yeah, no, it's delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It tastes like a creamsicle. Yeah. It's spiced rum. So I think they use Captain Morgan's, and then is it Hams? Yeah, or it's a light beer.
Yeah, it's
and then a little bit of orange juice, and then you drop the shot in the glass and chug it.
Chug it. Delicious.
Yeah, one and done, in and out, 3 minutes.
And they'll get you going. And then the next place you should go immediately after that is for a crepe.
Yeah.
Or a bagel in the morning, or both.
Well, yeah, PBF, then crepes, then in the morning you'd go to the bagels.
Because you need coffee
There's
and
a
bagel.
sequence to the event.
So, okay, I see your master plan. You have this night, you have a great time, you become friends. The concept rolls from there. This whole concept that you went into AB Crepes with, where you were friends prior, this kind of starts at the same time, right? It's like pretty close to the same time. And how was that for you guys, keeping the business and your friendship
For Nate
separate?
and I?
Yeah,
all friendships are unique, but Nate and I's friendship, the base of it was just, or has always been, I mean, it's been going outside and playing and drinking beers and chatting and having a good time. But also, like, we're both very passionate about business, and we try and keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in Bellingham and like kind of where things are progressing and developing, and just where we think the relevant parts are, what's going to be happening in 10 years. And so that takes up a lot of our conversations, because we're fascinated with that kind of stuff, whether it's development, the businesses that are coming and going, and the choices they make, that kind of stuff. So it was a natural progression to go into business with one another. But also I'd like to think that he and I have very complementing skill sets, where I have the history with the restaurant industry. I look a little bit more inward and focused on the immediate details and the process. And he is, pie in the sky. He has the business development and the growth. And I mean, in the first couple months, we've both been busy for our own reasons, but we've both done a really good job at focusing on our areas and dividing and conquering and promoting the space.
Kind of staying in your lanes, but stepping over when you need to.
Yeah. A little bit of overlap.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a mutual respect there. I respect him for what he does and knows, and I think he respects me for the same. For
people that are listening that have not been to either AB Crepes, which would be shocking. So if you're listening to this and you have not been, I'm shocked and appalled that you have not been to AB Crepes. So you should go. No, but on a more lighthearted note, somebody walks into your shop, what experience do you want them to have at AB Crepes and Otherside?
I've preached the same philosophy at both places, but I mean, our goal in customer service is to meet and greet, treat people as friends. There's an element of customer service that I think a lot of places have lost. That's not necessarily me touting that, but it's just what I've heard, where it's dry, a little bit emotionless. So we want to just joke around with people. Specifically to bagels, we want to be the catalyst that gets you from the morning groggy side of your day to like just being energized and stoked for whatever adventure, whatever day you're going to be having. For bagels as well, like, we want you to be stimulated, whether with it's the space with all the natural lighting and the plants and the atmosphere, the music, the people greeting you with a smile and they're energetic. That's our whole goal. And same with crepes. I didn't know this at the time, but it is set up for success in the sense that it's a personable experience. You walk in, you have to walk past all the staff. And I mean, I've sat there and watched people a lot, and you will be greeted on your way in. People will talk to you on your way out. It's fantastic. It's meant to be interactive. A lot of places talk about, like, we need to make sure they have a good experience. It's about the experience. And so we've hammered that at the crepe shop, and we're developing that at bagels, just trying to give a good experience. The culture around both crepes and bagels are very different, where crepes it's an art form. It's slow, it's personable. If people want to watch, they should be able to. That's why we have it up front. Bagels, we've made this term bagel culture, where people are in a hurry, and you order a bagel, you get it out quickly. Yep. Respect their time. Even if they're the only person in the shop, go as quickly as you can. But it's a different experience, but it's still a valuable one.
So if somebody walks into either one of these establishments, what do you recommend for a sweet versus a savory crepe at AB Crepes?
I'm partial towards the savory side. One person
Chicken
can only
pesto.
eat so much Nutella.
I don't know. I think I get a lot of Nutella.
If you have a steady regimen of like marshmallows and Nutella and all these other things, good on you.
Steady regimen.
It's not sustainable though. For me.
3-course Nutella.
I usually, the gluten-free, that's what I would say. Whatever fancy you have on the savory side of things, like, follow your cravings. But the gluten-free batter is divine.
That is what I got.
It is so good.
That's what I've had multiple times.
Yeah.
Delicious.
I'm not gluten intolerant, but I eat that one every single time because it's delicious.
Yep.
There's something about it. It's just nutty and so good. For bagels, our bagel is the most popular one. Which bagel? It's an egg, it's bacon, it has a big old hash brown on there, pepper jack cheese, some sauce. It's delicious. It is wonderful.
Yeah. And you have really good gluten-free bagels.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Which is neat. And so that's another thing that sets us apart, is we have a 4-deck modular electric modular oven. The top deck is dedicated gluten-free. We only cook gluten-free items in there. So gluten will never touch that oven. And then the middle 2 decks are kind of the catch-all. They do, well, no, they're not. The bottom is the catch-all, where we put our jalapeno cheddar bagel, or cookies are made in there because, animal products, that kind of thing. So we keep it separate. And then in the middle, those are our vegan ovens, where for allergen purposes, we keep it quite separated. But we can also respect people's diets because, grease or bacon grease or cheese like collects on the walls and it's up in the
all
air.
sorts of things. Yeah.
But they're delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've become a huge fan of bagels.
I ordered the salmon lox classic, and I got the turkey with sprouts, and I forgot what the name of it was. It was turkey, sprouts, and
Cascadia.
Aeolia. Yeah. Aioli.
It's a hard word.
Aioli.
It's a hard word.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fancy mayonnaise.
2 bagels, delicious. My wife and I came in. We both had breakfast sandwiches on it. I think it was the soft opening, and even the gluten-free bagel was not your gluten-free bagel that day.
No,
but now it is, and it's so good.
It took us a little bit longer than opening to perfect that recipe. I would say too, something I learned was clear respect for bagels.
Yeah.
All of ours are hand rolled too. So we make the dough and then we have to let it rise a little bit, which, it's like brewing beer, but it's with food. You're brewing food because all the yeast is involved. It's an active live agent. And so you take that, you have to cut it into pieces, you hand roll the whole thing. This is all done the day before. And then when it's all pieced out and your pucks, you have it proofing, and there's a window where it's either underproofed or overproofed. So you have to time it well. You throw in the cooler to crash it for the night. And then the baker comes in early in the morning to pull it out, let it kind of warm up and start proofing again. And then it has to be boiled. We boil ours in lye water, which is traditional. And you can't underboil it. You can't overboil it. And then you have to pull it out of that. You put seeds on, but the right amount of seeds, not too many, not too little. And then you have to throw it in the oven and bake it to perfection. There are so many steps involved in bagels. It's wild.
But there's probably a difference between when those things aren't done right and when you do what you just said.
I would agree. Yeah. And it's biased because I can taste the difference and notice the difference now when certain steps are messed up on. A well-made bagel is something really to be revered. Yeah. It is pretty cool. But it's literally a 24-hour process to create this one little piece of bread. Yeah. It's amazing.
That you down probably in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about your aspirations, your dreams, your food truck hub idea. Brilliant. I love that idea, by the way. What does the future look like for AB Crepes, for Otherside? What are some things that you want to do as part of your life?
That's a big question. My
business life. Sorry, business life. What's the meaning of life, Bayly?
Yeah. For the crepe shop, I would love to have one more location up on campus somewhere, or even on Vendors Row, just to have a little bit more of a presence up there. To maintain that relationship with the students. We've been talking about having a physical location at the Gorge with the crepe shop, which would be pretty cool. Yep. So if anybody knows who to talk to at the Gorge, let me know.
I think Dave Matthews.
Yes. Yeah. Labor Day.
Yeah, Labor Day.
Labor Dave, excuse me. But I'm pretty content with the crepe shop. We're in a good spot. With bagels, our whole model was to have 2 to 5 locations. We invested a lot of time, money, and energy into having a pretty robust kitchen for production purposes. And so it doesn't make sense for us just to have that one spot. The next one, it's going to be more or less a commissary model where we're making all the food and the bagels there, and then we'll distribute it to other locations. So ideally, we have a couple more, a lot smaller in theory. And I would be content with that. In an ideal world, I can grow the bagel shop to a point where we can pay a few people like a livable wage and they are achieving what they want to achieve, whether it's, chefing and making recipes and satisfying that desire of theirs, or basically just like giving people a comfortable living. I think the food industry in Bellingham in general, it's wonderful, but it's also tough. It's constantly churning because you have college kids coming in and out. And I think we're able to thrive as an industry off of that, but there's not a lot of like ability to pay people, or a large number of people, a livable wage. So my hope is with growth and expansion, we're actually able to create these roles and empower people to stay here, because it's really, you would know housing prices have gone up a little bit, and just empower people.
Yeah.
So, but then, I have other completely different concepts that if the opportunity arises, I would love to jump on. So
I think we'll have to talk about those.
Yeah.
At some point we'll talk about those, maybe over another glass of whiskey. And first of all, I appreciate you and what you've done for this community. I have a lot of just pride in seeing other people, because it's hard being young, a young entrepreneur, right? And having to compete with this whole thought of like, well, you're young, you don't know what you don't know. And you're like, well, that's true. But also I have a good idea and I have hard work. And then also all of a sudden people start to see this like, oh, it's working, right? Thank you for bringing that to Bellingham and really contributing to that downtown core, which we so desperately need good stuff down there, and bring good food to Bellingham. You remember what it was like before we got to Bellingham? It was kind of bleak. There's some good restaurants, but there was no competition.
I mean, I'm not here to speak ill of anyone, but it was thinner.
Yeah.
I would say the positive and negative of COVID too was some of the long-standing restaurants, some fell by the wayside, but I mean, it also inspired a lot of new ones to come in. And I mean, we've seen a whole bunch of new concepts come into play, and they're younger entrepreneurs and people who are really driven and passionate about their concept. And I mean, you can taste it, you can see it in the service and the whole experience. I think in time too, that'll kind of expand and trickle into the whole city. And I think the next 10 years are going to be really bright in general, but for Bellingham especially.
I'm excited.
It's going to be pretty fun.
There's a lot of people that really care about Bellingham.
Oh yeah. I think now more than ever too. It's more prevalent, I should say. Maybe they've all been here, but there's a lot more activism, I think. Myopic view is on downtown, and there's a lot of people really trying to make downtown a better place, a safer place, a cleaner place, vibrant. But I think that's happening at every level for the city. So it's very exciting.
Well, I'm excited to see what you do. We'll keep buying bagels, crepes. I'm excited to see what you continue to do, what you create in the future. We're big fans, so thank you for joining us on episode 1 of season 4. This is baby. I have sleep right now. I may not have sleep when you hear this.
You need to relish. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Building Bellingham is a community podcast exploring leadership, challenges, failure, and mindset with entrepreneurs right here in Whatcom County, Washington. You can be the first to hear about upcoming guests by subscribing to the Building Bellingham Facebook or Instagram pages, as well as the Building Bellingham YouTube channel. This episode was produced and edited by Tiffany Holden. Our videography is done by Cooper Hansley. Community projects are by Taylor Beal. To learn more about the team behind the podcast and to download our media kit, check out our website at www.livebellinghamnow.com or search Cohen Group NW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. From the whole Building Bellingham podcast team, thank you for listening.